Howdy bubs and welcome back. Today we're jumping back into the Game Maker, and this time we'll be working on fleshing out levels, ensuring that the game remembers the correct values between restarts, between rooms, and between starting a brand new game. Unlike most of the videos, this time I've already put together all the code just because there's so much involved. I wanted to make sure I had everything right the first time. So first, in our pickup weapons, let's go over to our weapons and pickup. In our create event for each pickup item, I'm going to add in a global variable check to see if the global player has a weapon. If the player already has a weapon, it will tell the pickup item to destroy itself. We don't need to see it. Same thing for a melee weapon. If the global player has a melee weapon, destroy itself. This ensures that there's no weird situations where the player picks up multiple weapons unnecessarily. It doesn't necessarily do any harm, but it doesn't need to exist. Next, going into the game, we're going to update the create event. We're actually going to keep track of all of the items relevant to the player. So we already have score and score room, so that way we can update these as necessary. But I added in 3 variables. Player has weapon. By default, my player does not start with a weapon. Player has melee. By default, the player does not have melee. And finally, player health. I initialize this to 12 simply because I have 3 hearts. I can only go up to 12 health. That is the default value I'm setting it to. With that initialized, we are free to move on to our menu and take a look at the step event. Inside the step event, I've done a couple of modifications. First, with reducing our code here and throwing it into a script, and adding more details for whenever we start the game. To explain this first, we need to look at the create event. In the create event, I've added 2 new macros. Save is given the value true, load is given the value false. So whenever I say save, it'll know it means true. Anywhere where I say load, it knows it means false. Over in our step event, I've initialized the other values as we've just described, so that way whenever the game restarts in a new playthrough, it ensures that we're not holding on to any of the old values that the player may have previously earned in that same session. Over here, the save load function, I've actually merged both portions saving and loading into a single script, and we just pass into it the appropriate macro, be it save or load, and it'll return to us the necessary information and get our operations going. In this case, our save and load function has 2 portions. If the operation is load, it does everything it needs to load in the information. The score has weapons, has melee, player health, and then the target, whatever room we're supposed to go to. It then returns that room. If instead we are saving, we then open the file, save the room, score, whether we have a weapon, whether we have the melee, and then finally our health, and then close the file. This will reduce quite a bit of code because over in our step event, I can now just tell it to save. Then over in our player event, in room start, where I previously had all the code explaining how to save the game, it's now been reduced to a single function call and the macro save. And then finally, in regards to saving and loading, in our O transition, if we go to our step event, whenever I do a room restart, I want to make sure to reset all the values to what they were at the start of the room. So, the simplest way to do that is just load the information. Since we always save at the start of each room, we just need to load what we had at the start of the room we're currently in. And then we simply have a room restart. Then, back into our OPlayer object, in my create event, I make sure to set our health equal to the global player health, so that way every time a room is entered and the player object gets recreated, we just grab what the global health is supposed to be. Then For our has weapon and has melee, where we previously had these set to true or false, we're now referencing the global variable. Does the player have the respective item? If they do, it'll be set to true and the rest of the code will work appropriately. Now, the only thing that I needed to add on top of that is if the player has a weapon, then our O weapon should actually come along with us. So for that to occur, we simply have if has weapon, which will be checked here based off of our loading the information in at the beginning of the room to check, okay, what do we have? It'll then create a weapon for us as needed. Then in our step event, I simply added a little update to my health. Previously, the health could actually go beyond our maximum, and so this just forces it to be the smaller of the two numbers, our current health or the maximum health. And that gets set to our current health. We then update the player health to match that. And that actually covers everything that we need for updating our code. Now I will demonstrate how to create a new level. Because we've been doing everything in our singular level, level 1 is what I've called it, room level 1. All you need to do to create a new level with everything named properly so there's no issues is you right click room level 1, or whatever your starting room is, duplicate it, and give it an appropriate name. In my case, I already have 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to call this 4. And now the room will already have everything it needs. It has all the correct layers. It has all of the appropriate objects needed for certain layers, such as game control and whatnot. Then all you need to do is go into the different layers and modify and delete or add in new things, change up the map, and then you've got a brand new level. But the most important thing, in order to ensure that we can transition between levels, I simply go to room level 3, I find my game control level end object, make sure to update the variable. This does not take me to the testing room, this will take me to room level 4. And then in room level 4, let me make sure I go and update this to take me to my testing room, or the menu, whatever you want it to do. It is, after all, your game. This will take me to room testing. That way I can cycle and rotate through all of my rooms. And there we go. It is as simple as that. And that's why it was so important to have a functioning, good first level before we began making other levels. So that way all layers were already created. We know everything that we need, and our code is prepared to transition from level to level without us having to do any extra work to facilitate that. That's actually all that I have for y'all today. If you have any questions or need any assistance, just let me know. Otherwise, everyone have a good one. I just wanted to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Shout out to my bad bubs, my top 5, my day ones. Y'all have always been there for me. Next up, my baby bubs, the next 5. I always love y'all's support. And finally, for everyone else, any little bit helps. Thank you to all my basic bubs for supporting me along my journey. If you want to continue receiving notifications, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell button.